What is up, ladies and gentlemen? We're back on tabs again, and this will be a bit more of like what I'm going to call a mega episode, because over the weekend I came in and I was making a bunch of the units for a Broken Nation, mainly just because I was bored. And I was like, you know what, let's record it, make it into a time lapse, and then we'll go over it for this video, and then we'll spin the wheel and get into more units. So I'm gonna pick a map here, and then we'll lay out the... Wow, that was loud. Okay. So we actually have the faction set up here already. Perfect. Hold up. I'll time lapse to the end of this. All right. All right. So, beginning to current. Is there actually a way to make my camera move slower? I don't think so. But yeah. So going down the line, here's what we have. Yeah, okay. Going down the line, here's what we have, like, beginning of the story to current. It starts with the hunter here. He gets a mission to assassinate a target involved with a large PMC corporation. It's through this he realizes that there is a research division within this big organization that he has to infiltrate. And that is to kill this target here. He gets in successfully, but when he gets to the target, he's confronted by two guards and gets shot by the one of them. He makes it to the target, but by the time he makes it there, blood loss causes him to faint. The target then takes him and uses him as a test dummy. And so, after doing experiments and such on him, he discovers a serum he created that was able to literally regenerate tissue and increase bone density and all that. And it heals the hunter, in which he gets up and shoots and kills the target. He then escapes, being presumed dead. He wears a mask and a hood to hide any chance of being identified, even though, now that I look at his clothes, did not change at all. Which, I mean, would make sense if, you know, you can't exactly go to a clothing store after you're presumed dead. So, he moves on and he realizes that the serum that he was injected with it in such a high amount when he was so close to death that it actually altered his blood. So he had to hunt down shipments from this organization of their attempts at recreating the serum, in which they couldn't even recreate it exactly, but they made efforts to do so, and he would attack these shipping trucks to take however much he could, whether it's 1 container or 5 containers. He would take them because he basically needed it to survive. And he was also doing experiments to see if he could perfect it so that he no longer needed to just constantly hunt it down and use it, because obviously if they stopped production on it or gave up on the project or ran out, he would die. So he was trying to perfect it to actually heal his heart, so he no longer had to rely on it the way he did. And it was while he was hiding out in a building doing these experiments, our boy here, Ratchet, comes along. He's injured, his clothes are ripped up, and he's being chased down by agents. They get in a shootout with the agents, and in desperation to save the wounded stranger, the hunter hooks him up with this weakened version of the serum through an IV. The building they're in ends up getting burnt down while they're in it and collapsing. It was through this that Ratchet then got separated from the man who literally just saved his life. And Ratchet lived because the barrels he was around and the section of the building he was in, the roof didn't collapse on him, but it did collapse on the hunter. So he just assumed that he was dead. And then we have the agents. I don't know why this guy's super short and this guy's tall. But anyway, then we have after the fire. So after the fire, things changed, and obviously the hunter was still alive, but a bit more injured, but obviously still alive. It's kind of hard to kill a guy who can regenerate. But you'll notice, like, as this timeline goes on, his uniform will get more ripped up and replaced with bandages. Because he has no way of replacing his uniform, so, you know, his jacket got torched, so jacket's gone. He now has, like, a bandage scarf and bandages around his wrists. And Ratchet actually moves on to kind of start this small rebellion. At this point, it's not much of a rebellion. It's more like just a one-man undercover rebellion. It's nothing really at this point. And so he goes on, and his goal is actually to destroy the serum. He thinks, you know, it's not right to make something like this. So he goes on, and his goal is to find their facility where they're producing it and destroy it. He makes a big bomb, a dirty bomb, and he's going to set it off inside the facility. And it's actually at this point, he does get a little bit of help, which we'll move down the line to show. He actually gets a small squad together to infiltrate and set off this bomb. But what he didn't know, because he only knew the hunter briefly, was how desperately the hunter needed this, and how desperately he needed to do research on it, which meant it had to keep being produced. So the hunter caught word of this and went into the facility, and considering he's an enemy of both sides, technically, he just started attacking everyone. He didn't initially want to kill Ratchet because, you know, he saved his life. It would be kind of counterintuitive to just kill him. So he attacked his squad with non-lethal force and only attacked the agents with lethal force, but he still attacked them. And Ratchet didn't recognize him, so the two of them actually get into a physical fight. It started as a gunfight, then it turned physical, and it ended with the hunter being shot by our one member right here of this ragtag squad. He got shot by him. So these guys aren't named. Well, the guy in the middle is, but we'll get to him later. At this point, he doesn't really have a name. They just have three different, I guess, specialties. We have the Vanguard, Specialist, and Sniper. Pretty straightforward. Our Specialist here ends up shooting the Hunter, and the three here and Ratchet begin to flee, and the three get out. Ratchet was behind them at the entrance when the bomb went off, so Ratchet was partially caught in the bomb, which actually left his head burnt. So he then went on to completely change up his uniform and cover up his head and face. And by this point, wanted to completely bring down this organization. Now, the organization's name, I've kind of been glancing over it because I didn't remember it, and I still don't completely remember if I'm correct here, but I believe it was literally National Defense. I'm pretty sure it was literally named National Defense because 16-year-old me wasn't exactly that creative. So Ratchet does get burnt from it, and they begin a rebellion. And the Hunter, well, he was caught in the blast itself. Because of the way the serum enhanced his bone density, among other things, it actually did not completely atomize him like it probably should have. Instead, he was left incredibly wounded and worse off than he was before, but still alive. So he replaced majority of his uniform with bandages because obvious reasons. He was just caught in a mini nuclear explosion. And he this time completely covered his face. Eyes and everything was completely covered, and he became less active and more reclusive. Because what ended up happening was there was something with the way the bomb went off that his fate was kind of sealed. He is now at this point just slowly dying, but he still has this healing factor of every time his body heals, it does heal back stronger. So he's in a really weird spot because he's better off than he was, but now the factory that all of this stuff was created in is gone. Though, little did he know there was, I think, 2 other facilities for producing it, if I remember correctly, but each of them were like producing a different strain of it because they had different goals they wanted to reach with it. One being super soldiers, one being actual medically usable serum for just healing wounds without the side effects of the bodily enhancement. So they wanted to isolate the two, so they had one that produced this like off-brand of it, and then they had another two trying to produce completely different versions of it. Then to move on, big rebellion starts. They start doing almost like guerrilla tactics, attacking these trucks along highways and back roads. Wherever they can catch the trucks, they will just pop out, take pot shots into the trucks, if they take the truck down, they take what's in the truck and leave. And they themselves also created an even weaker version of the serum that had restorative properties with a temporary physical effect. So a temporary healing effect with no physical enhancement like bone density and that stuff and strength and everything like that. So by this point, they start to get seen as a threat. So National Defense, they start to create these enforcement drones, and they were made simply to be able to take bullets, you know, completely walk through whatever issue and shoot back. They were very, very simple creations. They were meant to take a beating and shoot bullets downrange. Pretty simple. And so this prototype was created that was produced in very few numbers as they made improvements on it before they could begin a mass production of a final piece. So that's where this yellow version of it comes in, colored after a test dummy, because they were simply just prototypes. And then along with this, they created a, with finger quotes, counter-terrorist branch to their organization, because their whole goal is they want to get all buddy-buddy with the government. They want to get in with the Department of National Security so that they can get funding to do stuff like this and then eventually overthrow the government. That was their goal. So they created this counter-rebel division that they hid under the guise of counter-terrorist division. And they said it was still in like a testing phase so that the government wouldn't contract the squad that they were establishing, because they were only really establishing one squad, and this squad was named Phantom Squad. The first member of this squad you get introduced to is called Centurion, and that is this guy right here. A former army soldier and a, technically by this point now, former agent for National Defense. He is incredibly smart and talented in understanding laser weaponry and just laser technology. So he creates a handheld laser that, similar to like an actual modern like anti-air laser cannon like the US military has, he created a handheld version that can be used in combat for breaching through walls as well as anti-personnel, because it's a massive cannon. The only problem is it has a long charge up and it is prone to having battery malfunctions and overheating, so we can only use it every now and then. So besides that, because he is a fairly big guy, I believe his character is 6'2", so He was like 6'2", 220 was, I think, how big the character is. So he's not a small guy. And so he often has machine guns and whatnot in his arsenal as his like go-to carry-on weapon, as well as some pretty heavy armor. He's basically like a walking tank, hence the name Centurion. So he actually operates alone for about 2.5 months before they finish their next project, which is a former Air Force pilot and God, what was their other thing? She was a former pilot and I believe an explosives expert as well, working for one of their divisions. And this is Valkyrie. They created a flight suit as well as giving her a helmet that has a thermal vision to allow her better vision, the ability to scout, and obviously her expertise in explosives. You know, fly overhead, drop a grenade, you know, fight goes pretty quick. Then, once the two of them, the Centurion and Valkyrie, start working together, they end up in a pretty high stakes mission where they're actually clearing out a facility that was commandeered by the rebels, in which Valkyrie gets wounded, and while flying away with a gunshot wound, comes in for a landing and was coming in too hot and broke her legs. Or sorry, broke one leg, not both legs. She broke a leg. And so they were forced to go in and refine their design a little bit and provided more armor to the main body, as well as a support, almost like an exoskeleton that just goes on the inside of her pants when she is in the suit. Now, what she's holding here is a little different. It's actually not something that comes along till later in the story, but she does use her Mark II armor pretty much the rest of the story, which is the reason why I included this. And I gave her bombs for a flying version here because she is an explosives expert. But we'll get more into why she has that later. And next we have, as the story continues, these two begin to cause a lot of problems for the rebellion and actually get them backed into a corner. They get Ratchet and his squad specifically pinpointed to a position where they pin them down and begin to basically besiege this building with intentions of killing the leader of the rebels, Ratchet. And so it was at this point that they deployed their final production of the enforcement drone, as well as a lot of agents, I believe 24 agents and about 10 guards, to this position to have a shootout with these 4 guys who are holed up in this building. And it was at this point where our presumed dead hunter also makes a final showing. He shows up as the enforcement drones show up and really pin them down and make it seem like there's no hope. I believe by this point, the Vanguard is dead. Their specialist is wounded. And Ratchet is also wounded. The sniper, by this point, he's still doing fine. He's doing great. But they had no way of getting through the armor of this drone, and things seemed completely hopeless. That was until the hunter showed up. He showed up and he took on this drone, took its attention away from them, and allowed them to take on the rest of the guards and agents that were attacking them, which resulted in the destruction of the building, the death of the sniper. But before the sniper died, he was providing medical attention to our specialist here, where he gave him that a weaker version of the serum that they had. They would put it in syringes for each team to carry along. Each person in each team would be given 2. And this would just be a way to, you know, just keep you alive. Like if things were really looking bad and you caught a bullet or something, you know, stick yourself with it and it'll heal you up. He was receiving medical attention and was injected with one, and the sniper went back to firing, and when he went back, he caught a bullet and died. It was by this point that then an agent had showed up with a rocket launcher. They wanted to just bring this building down and kill everyone there. So they fire off a rocket, and a section of the roof collapses directly on Ratchet's head. He was wounded and already kind of sitting out, just firing off a pot shot whenever he had the opportunity to, and the roof came down and killed him. By this point, the only person left alive and the only survivor from the squad was our specialist. The hunter, after running out of ammo fighting this drone, then starts a knife fight with the metal robot, in which kind of went like the first Deadpool movie when Deadpool tries to punch and kick Colossus and ends up breaking both his arms and legs. That's kind of how it went. He would hit the drone and it would damage the drone, but it would also, you know, it would break his hand, and then he'd have to wait for it to heal, and then he'd just keep beating on it, and he eventually destroyed the drone, but not before completely pushing his body to a limit that it could not handle, in which he then walked away from the scene and died. And it was not said, you know, where. It was just that, you know, he wandered off and found somewhere and eventually died. And then right after that, it didn't crush the rebellion. The rebellion was actually still quite strong by this point, actually. And it wasn't their headquarters where they caught Ratchet. It was a FOB. It was a forward operating base. So they then find a new member to join the Phantom Squad, which is our next guy here, Zephyr. So he is an ex-Marine contracted as a mercenary who really ended up starting as a mercenary, but then ended up just entering a full-time contract with the company after developing his weapon. A weapon that develops an electric charge so strong that I don't even really know how to put it. It creates such a strong electric charge that it can literally like blast holes through walls. It is very similar to his laser weapon, but it uses electricity rather than a superheated laser. And it generates a lot more energy and force on its impact rather than just blasting a burnt hole through a wall. And this also, when like overcharged, has the threat to literally shock the handler, like not like a static shock, like a fry your arms off shock. So it is still a very dangerous weapon that he doesn't use too often, in which case he opts for an AK instead. And that really catches us up to the story. It's by this point, I think this is chapter 3. I mean, chapter 1 was the hunter and meeting Ratchet. Chapter 2 was the bomb. Chapter 3 was the rebellion. Chapter 4 was the founding of Phantom Squad and the death of Ratchet. So yeah, this is up through chapter 4. And so there's still chapter... How many are there? 8? 10 chapters in this? We still have a while to go. We still have... we have another member to introduce. We have a big event. And then... yeah, okay. So, there's still a lot to cover, but that is majority of the story up to this point. And this still is, like, as I've created it, and as I've relived the story, and as it's come back to me, I really forgot how much I actually did enjoy writing this story. And there is still a lot more to it, so yeah, stay tuned for that. Okay, so now that we've covered that, let's cover a new story. We're gonna spin the wheel and make some more characters. I think at some point I'm going to dedicate a whole episode to actually just telling one story at a time, but I'll wait till I have all of them finished. Okay, Hand of the Gods. Ooh, that's an interesting one. All right, and we're back in tabs. Hold up, I probably should have done this sooner. I'll pull up my reference sheet for this one. This one's not a long one. It's actually a pretty small one. But this one, this is like a little short story. It's like a... What did I... Okay. It's like an off-brand, like, God of War, Kratos kind of story. As a matter of fact, I don't even know what half of these characters are, if I'm being completely honest. One of them I already made. This is actually what gave me the idea. I actually made a character with neon colors because those didn't exist for the original. But basically this character here, this is Dynamios. Dynamios is a name that is actually made from the Greek word dynami, however you say it, which means power, specifically an unstoppable force. So this is the Greek god of power. Not actually a real character, a fictional character. Basically, he's like the equivalent of Kratos. He killed Zeus, he killed Ares, he killed Poseidon, he killed Hades. You know, that kind of thing. And this actually isn't completely accurate to the original, which is funny because I filled up all 15 clothing slots. So yeah, this is an interesting one. I don't remember too much about it because it's not really that special. So we'll just make something. This is one of those ones where I really just didn't care if I got it or not, because it's not really, it's not a big one, it's not really special, it's just I did it and it exists. So first up, this is actually going to be a really simple character. Okay, so let's just make the faction here quick. Color was blue. I believe I just first tried the color. I'm not gonna lie. Let me go back to reference it. There we go. Yep. Right. Soldier. Yeah, I'm just gonna leave it at that. I'd like this to be more of a story episode, so yeah, if you enjoyed, leave a like, and I will see you all in the next video.